the strong child in the family was the most overlooked.
"We're done with you." Not shouted, not slammed across the room, just said, calmly, like canceling a subscription. Imagine being 17 and hearing that from the two people whose names are on your birth certificate. No warning, no buildup, just a quiet dismissal in the kitchen of the house you grew up in. That's what happened to Lena Carter. And here's the part that makes this story different. She didn't argue back. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. She didn't cry. She didn't even raise her voice. She just nodded and started packing. Now, pause for a second. What would you have done at 17? Yelled? Called a friend? Slammed a door? Lena zipped her bag. Because this moment didn't start that night. It had been building for months. Her parents, Mark and Diane Carter, had just spent nearly $28,000 supporting her older sister Kayla's nursing program. Tuition balance cleared, apartment lease secured, car upgraded. Meanwhile, Lena's own college savings account, the one her late grandmother had started when she was 5, had quietly drained, gone.
Family resources shift.
Her father had said. "You're strong. You'll figure it out," her mother added. Strong. Funny how that word becomes a reason to give you less. But what Mark and Diane didn't know was this. Lena had already spoken to someone, weeks earlier. Someone who didn't just nod sympathetically. Someone who asked detailed questions. Someone who took notes. So when the doorbell rang at 6:14 p.m., just as Lena lifted her backpack off the bed, her mother muttered, "Who shows up unannounced anymore?" Then came the voice from the porch.
"Child Services."
And when the social worker stepped inside, she didn't look confused. She looked stunned.
"You're her parents?"
Why would a professional say that before even sitting down? Because what Lena had documented was bigger than one argument. And what happened next would shift the entire balance of that house.
1 second. They told the 17-year-old they are done. After draining her college funds, and now child services at the door, something doesn't add up. Were they protecting someone or hiding something?
Favoritism doesn't explode. It accumulates, slowly, quietly, almost politely. You don't notice it at first. It looks like practicality, like logic, like helping the one who needs it most. That's how it started in the Carter house. Kayla, 22, had always been described as sensitive. When she struggled with chemistry, she got a tutor. When she failed her first driving test, she got extra lessons. When she changed majors twice, her parents called it finding her path. Lena, on the other hand, was self-sufficient, honor roll, part-time job at the grocery store 3 evenings a week, captain of the debate team. The kind of kid adults point at and say, "See, she'll be fine." And that became the problem. When Kayla got accepted into a private nursing program, the tuition gap was steep, nearly $28,000 after partial loans. The Carters didn't hesitate. They moved money around. Money that wasn't entirely theirs to move. Lena noticed the shift when the automatic deposits into her college savings account stopped. The account her grandmother had legally designated for her education. When she asked, her father leaned against the counter and said,
It's still family money.
"Family. Strange word when it only flows in one direction." Her mother added, "You live here rent-free, Lena. You don't even pay utilities." At 17, have you ever heard something so technically correct but emotionally hollow? That was the moment something clicked for Lena. Not anger, not rebellion, documentation. She started keeping screenshots, bank notifications, text messages, notes about conversations, dates, times. Because here's something most teenagers don't know, and most parents don't expect them to know. Educational trusts aren't suggestions. They're legal structures. And if funds are diverted improperly, that's not just a family disagreement. That's misappropriation. Illegal. But the Carters didn't think Lena understood any of that until the knock at 6:14 p.m. and until the woman at the door stepped inside, scanned the living room, and looked directly at Mark and Diane like something didn't match her file. And that's when the atmosphere changed. Because Angela Ruiz wasn't there to mediate. She was there because something had already been triggered. But what she had in that folder would make the air in that kitchen feel heavier than anyone expected.
Oh my god! They moved money from a legally designated trust and call it family funds, and she's been documenting everything? Either this is a misunderstanding or they seriously underestimated her. Let's see what's actually on paper.
Here's something most parents underestimate. Paper trails don't have emotions. They don't care about tone or intent or who was trying their best. They care about facts. Angela Ruiz didn't raise her voice when she stepped into the Carter home. She didn't accuse, she didn't threaten, she observed. Calm eyes, neutral posture, a leather folder tucked under her arm.
"Good evening,"
she said.
"I'm following up on a school report."
School report.
Mark let out a short laugh.
This is about a teenager being dramatic?
Angela didn't respond to that. She looked at Lena instead, then back at the kitchen table.
"May we sit?"
And that's when the shift became visible, because Angela wasn't reacting to Lena's packed bag. She was cross-checking what she saw against what she had already reviewed. 3 counseling visits documented by the school guidance office. A written statement from Lena describing the transfer of her education trust funds. Bank statements showing the account's balance decline over a 4-month period, coinciding with Kayla's tuition deadlines. Angela placed a photocopy on the table.
Was this account established by the maternal grandmother as a designated educational trust?
Diane hesitated, just a second too long. Mark answered quickly.
It's family money.
Angela's tone remained steady.
Designated minor trusts are not general family funds.
Silence. Have you ever watched someone realize the conversation is no longer informal? That was this moment. Angela continued.
Were you aware that transferring designated funds without beneficiary consent can trigger a formal review?
Mark's confidence faltered. Diane's hand tightened around the edge of the chair. This wasn't about yelling. This was about structure. And structure doesn't bend easily. Then Angela asked the question that made the air in the room feel thinner.
Lena, do you feel financially secure in this household? Not safe. Not loved. Financially secure.
At 17, Lena didn't answer immediately. And that pause, it said more than any argument ever could. Everything changed, but the next words out of Angela's mouth would push this from review into consequence.
Wait, the trust is officially under review, and the social worker just asked if she feels financially secure. That's bigger than one argument. So what happens if she says no? This could flip everything.
Lena, do you feel financially secure in this household?
It's a strange question to ask a 17-year-old. Not, are you loved? Not, are you safe? Financially secure. Why that word? Because security isn't about feelings. It's about access, stability, protection. Lena looked at the kitchen floor for a moment. Then she looked up. No. One word. Steady. Not dramatic, not loud, just honest. And that's when something in Angela Ruiz shifted. Not outrage, not sympathy, clarity. She turned back to Mark and Diane.
Given the documentation provided, I am required to initiate a formal review of the trust activity. Pending review, the minor beneficiary has the right to request financial oversight and temporary alternative placement if instability is substantiated.
The words were clinical, but the impact wasn't. Mark stood up.
Alternative placement? She has a roof over her head.
Angela met his eyes evenly.
A roof does not replace designated financial security. It doesn't.
Have you ever seen someone realize they're not in control of the narrative anymore? Diane whispered.
This is being blown out of proportion.
Angela didn't argue. She simply placed another document on the table, a summary of the trust structure. It included a clause neither parent seemed to remember. If funds were diverted outside educational use for the named beneficiary, restitution could be ordered, and oversight assigned. Oversight. That word landed heavier than anything else, because oversight meant someone watching, someone auditing, someone checking. Angela turned to Lena again.
You've been handling this alone?
Lena nodded, and that's when Angela froze. Not because Lena was dramatic, but because she wasn't. 17, working part-time, paying her own exam fees, documenting financial discrepancies, reporting through official channels, quietly, strategically. Angela closed the folder.
Effective immediately, the trust activity is under review.
And in that moment, the balance of that house tilted. But what Lena chose next, after finally having leverage, would surprise everyone in that kitchen. You'd expect shouting, or revenge, or at least a dramatic exit with a suitcase rolling down the driveway. That's not what happened. Angela asked the final procedural question.
Lena, would you like to request temporary alternative placement while this review proceeds?
17, bag packed, opportunity in front of her. This was the moment most people imagine, the cinematic escape. Lena surprised everyone.
No,
She said calmly.
I want the account restored. And I want written oversight. Not freedom, accountability.
That answer hit harder than rebellion ever could. Mark looked stunned. Diane looked smaller than she had 10 minutes earlier. Because Lena wasn't trying to punish them. She was forcing structure. Within 48 hours, a formal review notice was filed. The trust administrator, previously hands-off, was looped back in. The diverted funds were documented as improper transfers tied to non-beneficiary expenses. A repayment schedule was drafted. Kayla's tuition was legally separated from Lena's trust. And mandatory financial oversight was assigned until Lena turned 18. 17. No one was arrested, no one was removed in handcuffs, but something much heavier settled into that house: supervision, transparency, paper trails. Mark later admitted, quietly in a counseling session, that he assumed Lena didn't need as much, that being independent meant being less affected. But independence without protection isn't strength, it's exposure. Remember the first sentence of this story? We're done with you. That's what they said. But what they didn't understand was this. At 17, Lena wasn't powerless. She was documented. She didn't scream. She didn't slam doors. She didn't run. She filed. And sometimes the most shocking move isn't walking out. It's staying and forcing the system to work exactly as it was designed to. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been the strong one in your family? The one expected to just handle it? What would you have done in Lena's position? If this story made you rethink what quiet strength really looks like, subscribe. Because sometimes the loudest consequences arrive without anyone raising their voice. And sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one holding the most leverage.
Sometimes the most quiet child is the one building the strongest case.